the debate for and against digital regulation for emerging tech. So that looks like it's quite a meaty one. So I think, Nadia, you said you put that one in. Do you want to just introduce it and what's made you pop it in there as a question?
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. I'm Nadia. I'm a newcomer. I'm originally from the US, but I'm studying at the University of Edinburgh. I'm getting my postgraduate degree in entrepreneurship and innovation. And I'm currently in the dissertation portion of my program. So the reason I asked this question is because it is essentially the topic that I've chosen to focus on for my dissertation. And so knowing that I'm in a public forum filled with people from different backgrounds, different, knowledge on the topic of specifically blockchain technology, I'm curious to think, well, what are your opinions on the role of governments in being able to shape the infrastructure that is necessary for these kinds of technologies to be used and then also to be managed in an efficient manner? And so I'm personally focused on like how it applies to blockchain, NFTs, and also the metaverse. But of course, I'm also open to hear about how it can have impacts on other kinds of technology like Web3 and so on and so forth. And so, yeah.
Really good topic. I think we'll probably need more than 5 minutes for that topic.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
What I'll do, I will extend it a little bit because it'd be really good to hear other people's views on it, actually. So I'll put that for 10 minutes and then we'll see how we get on with it. So does anyone want to chip in and just give their views on Nadia's question?
I mean, I can chime in as like a builder for the space. So I have like a love-hate relationship with crypto regulation. Like on one hand, it brings in more capital. On the other hand, it really slows us down. So in the last protocol I built, one of my least, I didn't actually dislike it, but we had like running joke. It's like the person I liked the least was our lawyer because he was just like the man of no. It's like everything, we would ask him, can we do this? Can we do that? And the answer is always no. And you've got to kind of like work your way up and, kind of just navigate that whole landscape. And dealing with regulations is really challenging when it's like the lawmakers are just so clueless and they're not really up to speed about the crypto space right now. But we do need some amount of regulations for the crypto industry to be taken seriously. And we're doing a lot better now versus a couple of years ago, because like 10 years ago, like it was just the Wild West. 5 years ago, it was still crazy. Now we have big money coming in and people actually take crypto seriously. And that's because of regulations. Like there's still a few countries that outright ban crypto, but now at least there's a couple of countries that recognize it and are building out laws, and we do need it. I do like the Wild West. I think a lot of core crypto fanatics do like, having no regulations, everything DeFi, everything decentralization, no authority. But if we want to be taken seriously, we do need regulation. So yeah, love-hate relationship.
I totally agree with that. I think the other thing is that my experience of people I know when you talk about regulation is that they don't want regulation until they're scammed, and then they really want regulation. So it's quite interesting. But Chris, you came off mic a minute ago. Do you want to chip in with your view?
Yeah, sure. So generally, knee-jerk regulation is a bad thing. So these emerging tech is, by definition, it's emerging and it's pretty fast moving, and politicians generally don't have a pretty good grasp of emerging tech. So knee-jerk regulation never really works very well. I think in the original question, you were alluding to infrastructure standards and technical standards and architectural standards. I don't think it's that important for governments or regulators to get involved in defining the tech standards. I think it's actually very healthy to have lots of different standards vying for, like basically having a Darwinian evolution of tech standards, as we saw with the early days of the World Wide Web. Where government should step in is either if there's a national threat. So we saw the government, for example, step in the regulation of 5G technologies and outlawing things like Huawei infrastructure in the 5G network. So if there's national security implication, yes, they should step in. If there's a consumer protection issue, then yes, also they should step in and regulate. We saw, I think it was on the 17th of May this month, where the Treasury Select Committee came out with their view that crypto should be regulated the same as gambling. So any sort of unbacked crypto, they basically said that it's got no intrinsic value and also no sensible value to society as a whole, which I thought was quite an amusing statement. I generally agree with it mostly as well. So what that showed me is it's kind of reaffirmed what I believe, which is that our sort of 2,000 years of legal system has built up some really good rules. And just because the tech's new, the stuff that people do with the tech isn't new at all. And there's a lot of existing laws in place, particularly in financial services, that cover pretty much everything that you could expect to do with this stuff. So I would say educate the lawmakers and the enforcement agencies on applying their existing laws to the new tech, rather than just coming out with some sort of knee-jerk regulation that's happening here.
Really, yeah, really valid point there, Chris. I think with the gambling, because I read the main headlines on that, but I didn't look at the detail with that. So when they were suggesting gambling, because gambling is tax-free, isn't it?
So I'm not sure it was so much about tax. I think it's more about how it was like there was the consumer protection and the addiction side of it, because I spend a lot of time speaking with folks who invest in crypto and they're very passionate about the crypto. But most of them, when they come down to being honest about why they're doing it, it's usually about making a profit, making a quick buck. And it has a lot of analogies with putting some money on the horses or gambling on whatever, right? It's very few people are that interested or knowledgeable about the philosophies of the projects behind of it. And I think even in our wall here of topics to discuss, we're looking at which ones are going to go to the moon and all that kind of thing. Everybody's just wanting some hot tip of it's basically the same as a bunch of old folks with trilby hats behind a pub discussing which dog is going to do well in the races tomorrow. It seems it's pretty analogous to that kind of thing if we're honest about it. So I don't think their Treasury Committee was making a statement on tax. I think they were just basically talking about we should regulate this and treat it as gambling, which has winners and losers and addiction problems and all sorts of victims and predators in that environment.
I love that analogy, Chris, as well. But yeah, you're right, and it's interesting if you speak to some people in crypto. I mean, my friend I was talking about earlier that came over, we were chatting earlier, and I think in the hour that I was sitting there chatting to him about a couple of other different things, he must have checked his phone about 6 or 7 times and changed the conversation back to crypto. So it's quite interesting that you, like you say, because it's not got the title of gambling, you can actually see a lot of the similarities that go along with it. So it is quite scary. And I mean, I've been guilty of it in the past as well. Literally check my portfolio about 10 times in a day. And yeah, the moon bags, interestingly, this exactly the same conversation I had with him this morning, where he was talking about all these projects he felt were going to 100x or whatever. And and he does research them, but it's still scary that when you think about things like market cap and all the other things that go into what these tokens or coins are going to do, that goes out of the window, and it's kind of maybe I'll win with this one. So yeah.
And I think we said earlier that crypto has been taken more seriously because of the market cap and the sums involved. Yeah. But just because there's a lot of money involved does not necessarily earn itself the respect of the wider society. So yes, it should be taken seriously because lots of people are making and losing money through it. But in terms of, like the Treasury Committee said, has it got any actual practical social value going on here? And I'm still hunting. I've been in the crypto for a long, long time now. I'm still hunting for any kind of killer app in sort of Web3 space that can't be done in Web2. And I'm really still struggling to find anything. And I feel that therefore it does just seem like it's a bit of a pyramid scheme built up of lots of other pyramid schemes that's not really helping a lot of things. And yes, I know there's some interesting projects that are working on Web3 infrastructure and those kind of things. And I am quite fascinated in their uses. And yes, there are some sort of niche uses in that space, but again, the most of it is not, I see, like Treasury's committee said, any real societal value. It is just people picking horses.
Yeah, I do think you have got a number of projects that have got value, but as you say, it's picking and choosing the ones where I suppose back a few bull runs ago it would have been called vaporware, where it was all the ICOs and stuff where everything was being promised and nothing was being delivered, but the market caps and the token values was skyrocketing. Has anyone else got any views on this? So Henrik, what's your thought?
Well, I'm just watching what's happening. That's no problem at all. Yeah, I'm just watching what's happening in America, and to be honest, they're making an absolute mess of it. They don't understand it. The regulators don't understand they haven't even got a definition for what's a security or they keep changing their views. The Coinbase want to leave America. It's an absolute shit show, excuse my French, but so I think regulation is definitely needed, but it has to be done without stifling the innovation side of it. And unfortunately, I think they see the whole crypto space as just a big casino. And we're still kind of, as Chris was saying, we're still kind of waiting for that one thing, that one sort of super app that launches it into, that actually gives it a real world use case before it takes off. But I think NFTs have the potential to be that, or at least one of the things in terms of the sort of using it as a proof of ownership, a proof of identity, all those things that NFTs can be used for. But there's the regulation side. I think they're just there's a lack of understanding from the regulators at the moment, and I think they've got a way to go before they get that right. I just hope they don't kill the innovation. That's my view on it.
So, who else wants to chip in with their views?
I'll have a go, Simon. Thanks.
Go on in, John.
Welcome along, Nadia. Interested to hear you're in Edinburgh. I'm just 20 minutes away from you, so hope you're enjoying sunny Scotland today. I agree pretty much with everything that's already been said. We do need a modicum of regulation, and until we do get that, I don't think we'll see the likes of the big players enter the crypto space, and institutional investors, and then their retail arm, if you were. So the big push on interest and a bigger spread globally. I think it's quite intriguing that Hong Kong have kind of done an about turn, and they are now starting any day now, 1st of June, I believe. And I think on the back of that, we're liable to see more positivity in relation to China. And I think that will probably force the US side of things to feel as though they're lagging behind, and they will need to up their game, so to speak, to not be left behind. So I think it's quite an interesting period, but I do think some regulation is needed, because it shows then that we're being taken seriously, and it's an area that's growing in stature. And I think with the changes, I think Asia will drive it, and then America will need to catch up, basically. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, John. Yeah, I mean, just to finish on that topic, my my view of it, and again, some of it does link to what Chris was saying about overregulation sometimes and needing to be taken seriously. My experience from 25 odd years in financial services is that the regulators, having gone through various different regulations, most recent one being the mortgage market, but is they will swing too far one way and then they'll swing too far the other way, and you never tend to get that happy medium. So it's always too extreme, or they're not paying enough attention to it. And it just seems to be like a pendulum a lot of the time. And I think overregulation, that can definitely be a bad thing because it does stifle innovation and so on. But under regulation, yeah, you've got the dangers of lack of credibility and I suppose, yeah, risk to consumers and so on.